candlelight, silk, and secrets. Have you ever wondered what it was truly like to awaken not as a king or a queen, but as the one who lingered in the shadows of their power? Tonight, you will drift into the role of a royal mistress, the woman who rests in chambers lined with tapestries, but who carries a place that is both honored and uncertain. Before we begin, dim the lights if you have not already. Adjust your pillow. Let your breathing fall into its own quiet rhythm. If you would like, comment your city and the time, as others across the world settle into this long journey together. Let the world outside soften, and allow this calm narration to draw you closer to rest. The candles burn low in your chamber. Their faint waxy smoke curls upward, mixing with the mild perfume left from yesterday's feast. You are wrapped in a gown that feels heavy at the shoulder seams, but soft at the cuffs, where velvet brushes against your wrist. Beyond the stone walls, footsteps echo faintly in distant corridors. They are slow, deliberate, and will not reach you for some time. As you lie there, you recall the myth you have heard repeated, that a mistress's life was filled only with glamour. Scholars and storytellers have painted her as powerful, always draped in jewels, always whispering commands into the ear of the king. Yet reality often proved different. Records from the time suggest that mistresses rose and fell, not with decisive strokes, but with quiet shifts in mood, glances withheld, or letters that went unanswered. You in this moment are not a towering figure of command, but a guest in power's house. The chamber itself is arranged with a careful order. By the fireplace rests a low stool, worn at the edge where embroidered slippers have tapped. A silver comb rests on a small table, its teeth bent slightly from overuse. Curtains hang heavy at the window, blocking out the misty air. You notice their texture as you draw one aside, thick, with a faint smell of mildew, where the damp air of winter has pressed against the fabric. Outside, the courtyard is still. Only the faint sound of a horse shifting in its stall breaks the silence. You sit up slowly, smoothing the fabric of your gown. The silk does not feel as smooth as the songs describe. It clings faintly to your skin, cooled by the night air. It was once bright, now dulled by repeated wear, but still considered luxurious, compared to the wool worn by most of the court's women. You think of Fortunata the Lucky One, another woman often seen in these halls. She always insists her garments carry the scent of lavender, though to your nose, they carry the sharper smell of soap that smells faintly of ambition. She may appear later in the day, humming as she always does when waiting for notice. For now, you move carefully, knowing that your position in this court rests on fragile threads. Historians still debate whether royal mistresses held true political sway, or were simply tolerated diversions. Some personal letters preserved in archives hint at strong influence. Others, equally authentic, reduce the role to nothing more than a fleeting comfort to a weary monarch. You hear a new sound, the faint scratching of quill on parchment. Rat-faced Pierre, the clerk, works somewhere nearby. He is known for his pinched expression, and though he serves the crown faithfully, he often delivers letters to you with a sigh so long it feels rehearsed. His presence is a reminder that even your private moments are noted, sealed and remembered in. You prepare for the slow rituals of rising. First, you step to the basin of water, cold from sitting overnight. You dip your hands and pat them across your face. The chill lingers, a quiet inconvenience in winter mornings. Second, you take a linen cloth, pressing it gently against your skin. The weave is coarse, almost scratchy, but steadying. Third, you reach for the small vial of oil left by the bed. Its scent is faintly rancid. Rose, once sweet, now turned slightly sour. Such was the reality of perfume in centuries past, where storage often betrayed the intention. This routine grounds you, though it is not always pleasant. You consider whether to summon the maid to bring fresh water, or to keep silent and continue as you are. A small dilemma, though meaningful. Comfort now, or discretion later. You choose to sit quietly, letting the fire's crackle soften the edges of the moment. As you sit, you reflect on the rules that govern your place here. Rules not written but understood. Do not outshine the queen in public. Accept the king's gifts without questioning their source. Share your smile sparingly, so it carries weight when given. Keep the secrets you hear, for loose words travel faster than truth. Never rise earlier than the king, unless asked. Each rule feels simple, yet each holds its own quiet challenge. Should you share a smile at the wrong time, it may be read as arrogance. Should you speak too freely, Your words may arrive in ears unfriendly to you. Your thoughts wander to myths you have heard, of mistresses who commanded armies of servants, who decided matters of state. Yet as you run your fingers along the cold stone windowsill, you know that reality is steadier, quieter. A mistress may whisper counsel, but she may also sit alone, waiting for a summons that may not come. The candle wavers as a draught slips into the chamber. You draw the fabric of your gown closer around your shoulders. The wax has pulled unevenly, hardening at the base like the ridges of a map. You lean back, closing your eyes for a moment. The chamber is not loud, not busy. It is simply the fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. The quiet morning rituals. You awaken again, this time not to the dim glow of flickering candles, but to the pale gradual spread of morning light across the stone chamber. The air is cool, faintly damp, carrying with it the scent of yesterday's smoke and the musk of tapestries that have absorbed years of heat, incense and whispers. The world outside remains hushed, yet inside the palace, the rhythm of the day slowly begins. Your role as mistress places you in a curious position, neither bound by the strict routines of the queen, nor free to wander entirely as you please. Your morning must unfold with care, like a slow dance in narrow The myth has always been that a royal mistress awoke to luxury, surrounded by silks, brushed by attendants, and pampered with oils from far-off lands. The reality, however, was gentler and less grand. Records from the time suggest that mornings were often filled with small inconveniences: lukewarm water, perfumes that turned sour, gowns that never quite fit as perfectly as songs suggest. You live this reality now, step by step, breath by breath, in the stillness of dawn. Mini Arc 1. The basin and the cloth. You rise from the bed, its straw mattress softened only slightly by layers of quilts. The embroidered coverlet bears faint creases, stitched long ago by hands you will never know. Your feet meet the cold stone floor, and the chill spreads upward, a reminder that even in privilege discomfort lingers. At the basin sits a small jug of water, collected yesterday. It has cooled overnight, becoming heavy with the faint mineral scent of stone. You perform your ritual in slow sequence. You pour the water into the basin, watching as it ripples against the dull metal. You dip your hands, the cold biting gently against your skin. You lift the water to your face, letting droplets fall along your cheek. You press a coarse linen cloth, its weave scratching faintly, leaving your skin tingling. You pause, eyes closed, letting the chill settle into calmness. Historians still debate whether attendants performed these tasks, or whether mistresses often tended to them. Records from smaller courts suggest that attendants came only later in the morning, leaving the mistress to greet her own reflection in solitude. The dilemma arises: should you ring the bell now, summoning the maid for fresh water, or let her sleep, keeping your independence for a little longer? You choose to sit quietly, breathing in the faintly sour scent of rose oil that lingers near the table. Mini Arc 2. The attendant and the wardrobe. A knock comes lightly against the wooden door. It is your maid, a woman known among the servants as Fortunata the Lucky One. She enters with a small bow, her steps deliberate, her humming faint and constant. She carries a bucket of fresh water, its surface trembling with each movement. She sets it down, and you notice her gown is patched at the elbow. She straightens the bedclothes with quick tugs, always humming the same tune. You wonder if she does so from habit or comfort, for even in silence she hums. The wardrobe stands tall against the wall, its wooden panels carved with faded vine. Fortunata opens it carefully, revealing gowns in muted shades: velvet, brocade, silk, though many are worn thin from repeated use. The myth is that mistresses wore new gowns daily, shimmering with The reality, confirmed in account books from several European courts, is that gowns were often reused, patched or altered to keep pace with shifting fashions without exhausting royal treasuries. Fortunata holds up three options: a pale gown of silk, faintly yellowed at the hem; a deep red velvet, heavy and warm, but with sleeves slightly frayed; a muted grey, plain yet practical. The dilemma: should you choose the garment that flatters, or the one that blends quietly with the court today? You decide on the velvet, knowing it carries warmth, even if the sleeves bear their quiet scars. Mini Arc 3. The powder and the mirror. Next comes the powder, that curious substance both praised and mocked in equal measure. Fortunata lifts the box, releasing a puff of scent that is half flower, half perfume. Powder was said to smell of elegance, yet some letters from courtiers describe it instead as chalk with roses. Step by step you prepare to. Fortunata dips a soft puff into the powder. She dabs it gently across your forehead, then along your cheeks, The particles cling faintly itchy, settling into the lines of your skin. You blink, feeling dryness, as if a thin crust has formed. You catch your reflection in the polished silver mirror, paler, smoother but less comfortable. Rat-faced Pierre the clerk once wrote of such powders in his margin notes, describing them with his usual pinched sarcasm. Powder that renders one both noble and sneeze-prone. You smile faintly, knowing his words echo truth. The mirror shows you a face both familiar and altered. You are not the songs sung in taverns, nor the paintings displayed in halls. You are a woman preparing quietly, with tools as imperfect as the roll itself. Mini-arc 4, the jewelry box. On the table sits a small box of jewelry. Its hinges squeak softly as you open it, releasing the metallic scent of old silver. Inside, pieces lie jumbled: a pearl necklace with one missing bead, a brooch shaped like a flower, a pair of earrings dulled with tarnish. The myth: every mistress dripped with gold and gems. The reality: many wore gifts second-hand, passed from one hand to another, or loaned temporarily for appearances. Records from the French court note entire lists of borrowed jewels, signed out like library books, then returned at week's end. You lift the brooch, feeling its weight. Its clasp sticks slightly, refusing to close easily. Fortunata hums as she polishes the pearls with her sleeve, as though they were treasures beyond price. Perhaps in her eyes they are. The dilemma comes softly: wear the pearl necklace, risking notice of its missing bead, or keep it hidden, choosing the plainer brooch. You choose the brooch, fastening it with care, hearing the faint click as it finally set. Mini-arc 5, the rules of presentation. Every morning, though unspoken, carries rules of presentation. You recite them quietly in your mind as you prepare. They do not enter the hall with uncombed hair. They do not carry the scent of last night's feast. Do not speak before the king unless addressed. They do not allow your gown to drag in the corridors. Do not smile too freely. It must seem earned. Do not appear hurried, even if you are late. Each rule feels simple, but each contains the weight of expectation. A step too quick, a word too soon, may ripple quietly through the court. You wonder if these rules protect you or bind you. Still, you follow them, for rules give structure and structure brings calm. Mini-arc 6, the corridor and the whisper. At last you step from your chamber into the corridor. The floor creaks faintly beneath your shoes. The air here is cooler, touched with the faint scent of damp stone and extinguished torches. Servants pass quietly, their eyes lowered, their movements steady. You hear whispers, names spoken, stories carried, some about you though never said directly. The myth has always been that whispers were filled with envy or admiration. The reality, more often, was that whispers were simply routine. She wore the red gown again. She walked later than the queen. You continue forward, each step echoing softly. Fortunata trails behind, still humming. Rat-faced Pierre appears at the far end, carrying scrolls under his arm. He pauses, squints, and mutters something about misplaced ink before shuffling past. The corridor feels long, but it is not oppressive. It is simply steady, a place where your role is performed, not through loud declarations, but through presence, moving, walking, exist. As the morning unfolds, you find yourself not in glamour but in ritual, not in power but in quiet survival. Myths dissolve into routines, and routines give way to comfort. The palace does not demand brilliance from you, it demands steadiness. And steadiness, in its own way, carries its own kind of power. The candles from earlier have burned to stubs, the daylight now carrying its own gentle weight. The gown rests against your shoulders, velvet warm despite its frayed sleeve. You inhale slowly, the mingled scents of powder, damp stone and faint smoke. The fire crackles softly in a distant chamber as the morning deepens, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Rules of the court. You walk slowly through the wide corridors of the palace, your gown brushing lightly against the stone floor. The torches have been extinguished for the day, replaced by pale morning light that filters in through narrow windows. The air is cool, tinged with the faint smell of damp stone, and the faintly sweet smoke of last night's incense. Each step carries you deeper into the formal world of court life, where rules spoken and unspoken govern every movement, every glance, and every silence. The myth is often told that mistresses moved freely unchecked by rules, that they laughed at conventions, that they dined as they pleased, and that they spoke boldly at the king's side. The reality, however, as personal diaries and court etiquette manuals confirm, was quiet. Mistresses lived by an invisible web of codes, too subtle to be written down in full, but strong enough to shape every action. You feel these rules press against you now as softly and firmly as the velvet of your gown. Mini-arc 1, the first rule: silence before speech. The hall opens before you, filled with the muted shuffle of servants. The sound of wooden shoes against stone echoes gently, mixed with the faint creak of doors opening and closing. You pause before entering, recalling the first of many rules: do not speak before the king, unless directly addressed. It is a simple instruction, but it carries weight. To speak too soon risks being seen as presumption. To wait in silence is to acknowledge the careful hierarchy that defines this place. Historians still debate whether mistresses followed this rule faithfully, or whether some used wit to charm their way around it. Letters from courtiers reveal that both approaches existed. Some women silent shadows, others gentle sparks of conversation. The dilemma rests with you now. Should you remain silent, bowing your head politely, or risk a quiet remark, offering a compliment on the weather? You choose silence, the safer path, letting your presence speak more softly than words. Mini-arc 2, the Queen's Gaze. To be a mistress is to live under the Queen's shadow. You take your place along the side of the chamber, where the smell of beeswax polish lingers from the morning's cleaning. The Queen sits opposite, her gown heavy with embroidery. You feel her gaze drift toward you, steady but unreadable. The myth told in plays and novels is that the Queen and the mistress clashed openly, exchanging sharp words and bitter looks. The reality, recorded in household accounts and diplomatic letters, was often more restrained. Queens and mistresses sometimes acknowledged each other with measured courtesy, both understanding that open hostility disturbed the calm surface of court life. Fortunata, the lucky one ever at your side, adjusts the hem of your gown with a faint hum. Rat-faced Pierre, standing nearby with his scrolls, mutters under his breath about misplaced ink, breaking the tension just slightly. You face the Queen's gaze with a small bow of your head. The dilemma passes: respond boldly, or fade into politeness. You fade, and the moment drifts away like smoke from a candle. Mini-arc 3, rules of eating and drinking. At midday the hall transforms into a dining chamber. Long tables are set with pewter plates and goblets, their surfaces dull with scratch. The smell of roasted meat drifts in, heavy but enticing. Servants move quietly, their footsteps softened by rushes strewn across the floor. Here another set of rules applies, structured and precise. Do not begin eating until the king has taken his first bite. Do not reach across the table, wait for food to be placed before you. Do not drink too deeply from your cup, sip slowly even if thirsty. Do not wipe your mouth with your sleeve, use the cloth provided. Do not speak with food in your mouth. These seem simple, but each rule has consequences. To sip too quickly marks you as greedy. To eat before the king appears presumptuous. The myth suggests endless banquets with laughter and indulgence. The reality, according to diaries of attendants, was closer to ritual. Long pauses, measured gestures, and food often cold before it reached your lips. The dilemma comes softly. Your throat is dry, the cup of watered wine sits before you. Do you drink before the king, or wait, letting thirst linger? You choose patience, swallowing only when he raises his own goblet. Mini-arc 4, the rule of dress. After the meal, attention returns to garments. The court notices fabric as much as work. Your gown of velvet chosen earlier marks you as favored, but it also demands care. Powder clings faintly to the fabric, carrying its chalky scent. The rules of dress, though unwritten, are well understood. Do not repeat the same gown too often, even if altered. Do not let stains show, even a faint mark is noticed. Do not let jewels clink too loudly, subtlety is praised. Do not let your hair fall loose outside of private chamber. Court records show that seamstresses were often employed more for patching and altering than for sewing entirely new gowns. The myth of endless wardrobes dissolves in the reality of budgets and account book. You glance at Fortunata, who runs her fingers over a seam, humming quietly, making sure the frayed sleeve lies hidden. The dilemma rests again. Should you adorn yourself more boldly, risking disapproval, or remain plain, risking invisibility? You settle into the middle, fastening the brooch chosen earlier, its clasp stiff but steady. Mini-arc 5, the rule of presence. Presence itself is a rule. In the court, absence raises questions. You must be seen but not seen too much. You must hover near but not too near. The myth imagines mistresses strolling arm in arm with the king, always center stage. The reality, confirmed in chamber accounts, was that mistresses often stood to the side, visible but restrained. Rat-faced Pierre sighs as he delivers yet another document, muttering that ink travels faster than truth. His dry remark reminds you that records endure, and every presence is noted somewhere. The dilemma: should you remain in the hall until dismissed, or retreat early to your chamber? You choose to remain, letting time pass slowly, your presence blending into the room like another piece of furniture. Mini-arc 6, the codes of conversation. Later in the afternoon,
Conversation flows. Gentle laughter drifts across the hall, mingling with the faint smell of herbs burned in a nearby brazier. This too carries rules. Do not speak longer than the king. Do not contradict openly. Do not laugh louder than others. Do not reveal secrets heard in chamber. Do not speak ill of absent nobles. Historians note that many mistresses mastered the art of half-speech, words that sounded meaningful but committed to little. You practice it now, offering a comment about the weather, then retreating into silence. The dilemma arises: do you flatter openly, or offer gentle neutrality? You choose neutrality, knowing that silence often protects more than speech. Miniarch 7. Myth and reality. As the day lengthens, you reflect on the myths of mistresshood. The myth: endless power, unchecked influence. The reality: power balanced on a knife edge of rules, gestures and silence. Court letters confirm this. Some mistresses rose high, others fell swiftly, undone not by scandal but by a poorly timed smile, a gown too bright, or a word spoken too soon. You feel the truth of it now, as the fire in the hearth burns low. Fortunata hums as she folds your gown. Rat-faced Pierre scratches notes into his parchment, his quill squeaking faintly. The queen passes without a word, her gown trailing softly, leaving only the scent of lavender in her wake. Soft landing. The candles glow faintly once more, their wax pooling into uneven ridges. The air grows cooler as night leans gently against the palace walls. You sit in stillness, wrapped in silence and velvet, held steady by rules that both bind and protect you. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Letters, gossip, and whispers. You walk into a smaller chamber quieter than the grand halls, where the air carries the faint scent of ink and old parchment. The walls here are lined with shelves of scrolls, and the sound is different. No clattering of cutlery, no shuffling of crowds. Instead you hear the faint scratching of quills, the low murmur of clerks, and the occasional flutter of paper as notes are folded and sealed. The myth has long painted the mistress as a woman whose power flowed through secret letters and whispered words, each message bending history. The reality, however, was gentle. Records from city accounts, personal diaries, and even marginal notes of clerks suggest that many letters were mundane, reminders of feasts, requests for cloth, polite invitation. Influence did exist, but it was subtle, carried in the margins of ordinary correspondence rather than in dramatic declarations. You sit near a desk, the wood polished smooth by years of elbows leaning, pens scratching and wax dripping. Fortunata, the lucky one, is at your side again, humming softly as she wipes a smudge from the surface with her sleeve. Rat-faced Pierre shuffles nearby, clutching a bundle of scrolls and muttering about ink stains that multiply like rabbits. His dry remarks echo in the stillness, a reminder that even gossip has its clerks. Miniarch 1. The ritual of letters. The first step in your morning here is simple, though deliberate: the reading of letters. Rat-faced Pierre presents them with a bow that seems half-hearted, his eyes already drifting toward the next task. The envelopes smell faintly of beeswax and smoke, sealed with bright red wax. You open them slowly, step by step. Tape. Hold the letter to the light, tracing the seal with your finger. Break the wax carefully, so it cracks with a soft snap. Unfold the parchment, the edges dry and slightly curled. Read the inked words, sometimes faded, sometimes bold. Press the parchment flat on the table, smoothing wrinkles. The words themselves are rarely grand. One letter reminds you of a banquet delayed, another lists the cost of fabrics to be delivered, yet another requests your presence at a hunting party. The myth of dangerous secrets dissolves here, replaced by the ordinary rhythm of administration. The dilemma: should you answer each letter promptly, or let them wait until later, knowing that silence can sometimes protect more than words? You decide to answer only one, leaving the others neatly stacked, a pile of patience waiting on the desk. Miniarch 2. Gossip at the edges. Beyond the written word lies gossip, and gossip often spreads faster than ink. Servants whisper in corners, voices hushed but carrying just enough. You overhear two names spoken together, though not loudly enough to know what is said. The myth is that gossip was always dangerous, always filled with scandal. The reality is that gossip was often dull. He wore the same boots again, she coughed during the feast. Fortunata hums more loudly when whispers grow close, as if her tune could drown them out. Rat-faced Pierre rolls his eyes, muttering, whispers carry less truth than a smudged ledger. You smile faintly, knowing his sarcasm is both bitter and accurate. The dilemma rises gently: lean closer, listening to the whispers, or remain upright, letting them pass by as though unheard. You choose to remain still, steady, reminding yourself that what is not heard cannot be repeated. Miniarch 3. The Queen's letters. Among the pile lies a letter not meant for you but for the Queen. By mistake or perhaps by subtle design, it has been delivered into your hand. The parchment smells faintly of lavender, the wax seal a deep purple. You hesitate. Historians still debate whether mistresses ever read letters not meant for them. Some personal accounts suggest boldness, others restraint. The myth tells of mistresses who tore open royal letters, learning secrets and plotting their advantage. The reality is less certain. Many may have placed such letters back in the pile, fearing the risk. You consider, should you open it or leave it untouched? A quiet moral dilemma. You choose to set it aside, sliding it back toward Rat-faced Pierre, who notices and gives a small nod, part approval, part relief. His sigh is longer than usual, as though the parchment itself carried the weight of his worry. Mini-Arc 4, Rules of Correspondence. Letters themselves followed rules, though not always written down. As you sit you recall them. Always seal with wax. Unsealed letters seem careless. Always fold neatly. Creases reflect poorly on sender. Never use too much ink. Smudges suggest haste. Never use too little. Faint words suggest weakness. Do not write at night. Candle wax betrays secrecy. Do not write in anger. Parchment endures longer than mood. Each rule offers quiet structure, a reminder that even paper carried etiquette. Rat-faced Pierre's ink-stained hands confirm the truth of it. Smudges travel farther than whispers, and letters endure when memory fades. The dilemma: write now, under daylight, or wait until evening when words may soften. You choose daylight, steady and calm, letting the quill scratch across the parchment.
Mini-Arc 5, Whispered Alliances. The chamber door opens softly, and a courtier enters, his shoes creaking faintly on the floorboards. He leans down, whispering quickly in your ear, a rumor of an alliance, a possible shift in favor, a name spoken with caution. The words are vague, more shadow than substance. The myth says that such whispers always carried meaning. The reality, as diplomatic records confirm, is that many whispers led nowhere. Promises were made, rumors spread, but few translated into lasting change. The dilemma rests with you again. Should you carry this whisper forward, repeating it to the king later, or let it fade, knowing it may dissolve into nothing? You let it fade, breathing slowly, feeling the weight of silence as a shield. Mini-Arc 6, Fortunata's Observations. Fortunata continues her steady humming, polishing the edge of your brooch with her sleeve. Between hums, she mutters small observations. Who looked tired? Who looked restless? Who walked with unusual speed? Her words are not gossip, but observations, simple and steady. She speaks of a servant who walked twice past the same corridor, of a maid who carried fabric heavier than usual, of a guard who tapped his spear absent-mindedly against the wall. None of these matter greatly, but together they form a quiet picture of life. The myth imagines mistresses surrounded by schemers and spies. The reality often relied on simple servants like Fortunata, who noticed small details, not because of ambition, but because they were there. The dilemma: should you listen closely to Fortunata's murmurs, giving weight to her simple truths, or treat them as background hum? You choose to listen, knowing that sometimes truths are found in the smallest pattern. Mini-Arc 7, Rat-faced Pierre's Sarcasm. Rat-faced Pierre sighs loudly, holding up a letter with a blot of ink, so large it obscures half a word. Behold, he mutters, the eloquence of a drunk quill. His sarcasm, though dry, lightens the stillness. He continues to shuffle papers, making notes in the margins. Some scholars believe that clerks like him were the quiet chroniclers of court, preserving details that would outlast both king and mistress. The myth elevates the mistress as the center of power. The reality may have been that clerks, through ink and paper, shaped the memory of it all. The dilemma: should you correct Pierre for his insolence, or let him mutter freely, knowing his sarcasm carries truth? You let him continue, his words filling the silence with something steadier than whispers. Mini-Arc 8, Myth and Reality of Gossip. You lean back in your chair, the wooden frame creaking softly. The air is heavy with parchment and wax. You reflect on the myth of gossip, as a weapon, sharp and dangerous. The reality is that gossip was more like smoke. It filled the room, lingered in the air, but rarely left a lasting mark. Historians point to records of scandals that never reached consequence, whispers that grew loud but then disappeared entirely. Court life was not constant fire, but steady embers. You live it now, hearing whispers drift by, each fading into the quiet. Soft landing, the light outside shifts, shadows lengthening across the chamber walls. The quills grow silent, the letters sealed and stacked, the whispers fading into softer murmurs. Fortunata hums her same quiet tune, smoothing your gown with patient hand. Rat-faced Pierre sighs one last time, blowing gently on a fresh seal of wax. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Gifts, jewels, and promises. You sit quietly in your chamber, the fire still burning faintly in the hearth, when a knock sounds at the door. The air shifts as the wooden panels open, carrying with them the faint smell of beeswax and polished leather. A servant enters bearing a small wooden chest. The hinges creak softly, the sound oddly louder than his footsteps. He sets the chest upon the table with care, bows and departs without a word. The chest itself is plain oak, but the weight inside it is obvious. You rest your hand on the lid, feeling the cool grain of the wood beneath your palm. Here lies the ritual of gifts, a practice surrounded by myth and imagination. Stories tell that mistresses were showered with jewels, their rooms filled with treasures beyond count. The reality, drawn from account books and records, was both more modest and more complicated. Gifts were given, yes, but they carried expectations, debts, and unspoken conditions. They were promises as much as ornaments. Mini-Arc 1. The opening of the chest. You unlatch the lid slowly, the small iron clasp resisting at first before clicking open. The chest releases a faint metallic smell, a mixture of silver polish and age. Inside lies a scattering of objects, a necklace, a folded gown, a ring wrapped in cloth, and a purse of coins. Each is meant not only to adorn but to remind. Step by step you inspect them. You lift the necklace first, pearls strung upon a silver thread. One pearl is larger than the others, uneven, reminding you that perfection was rarely real. You unfold the gown, its fabric stiff with embroidery, smelling faintly of the dye used to stain it crimson. You open the purse, counting coins that clink softly, their surfaces worn smooth by many hands before yours. You close the chest again, hearing the faint echo of the hinge. The myth says such gifts were endless. The reality, confirmed by inventories, is that gifts came occasionally, sometimes borrowed from the treasury, sometimes reclaimed after a mistress fell from favor. They were tokens of status, but never entirely secure. The dilemma: should you wear the necklace immediately, signaling gratitude, or set it aside, waiting for the right moment? You choose patience, letting it rest upon the table. Mini-Arc 2. The ritual of display. In the court, a gift unseen is almost as dangerous as a gift ungratefully refused. The ritual of display is therefore essential. You rise from your chair and place the necklace around your neck, the cool pearls brushing against your skin. Their weight is not heavy, but noticeable. Fortunata, the lucky one, always humming softly, enters and tilts her head. She polishes one pearl with her sleeve, humming the same tune she hummed yesterday, as if polishing and humming were inseparable. To her the pearls are priceless. To you they are both ornament and signal. Rat-faced Pierre shuffles in with a scroll under his arm. He pauses, squints and mutters, "Another chain of promises disguised as pearls." His sarcasm stings faintly, but you know his words echo truth. The myth: gifts were signs of love. The reality: gifts were signs of obligation. A necklace might say you are favored, but it also said, remember who gave this and why. Mini-Arc 3. Rules of gift keeping. In the court, rules governed gifts, even if they were never spoken aloud. You recall them one by one, like beads upon a rosary. Accept without hesitation, refusal offends. Wear soon but not too soon, lest eagerness seem greedy. Never give away a royal gift. It belongs to the giver as much as to you. Record where each gift is kept. Losses raise questions. When praised for a gift, deflect, never boast. If asked about its cost, say nothing. These rules bring comfort, for rules give shape to uncertainty. The myth suggests that mistresses flaunted jewels without care. The reality, shown in surviving ledgers, is that many tracked their gifts carefully, knowing that each could one day be reclaimed. The dilemma arises: should you wear the embroidered gown at the banquet tonight, though it risks outshining the queen, or save it for a quieter occasion? You fold it carefully, choosing delay. Mini-Arc 4. The whisper of promises. Later in the afternoon, the king enters briefly, his steps heavy, the air shifting with the faint scent of leather and wine. He glances at the necklace upon your neck, and nods, the gesture slight but clear. His words are few, little more than, "It suits you," but beneath the words lies promise: continue as you are, remain steady and favor will endure. Historians note that promises often accompanied gifts, spoken or unspoken. A jewel could mean protection, a gown could mean a position, a ring could mean acknowledgement. The myth is that promises were always kept. The reality, recorded in bitter letters from forgotten mistresses, is that promises often dissolved, leaving only the object behind. The dilemma lingers. Should you believe the promise behind the gift, or see only the object itself? You breathe slowly, letting the pearls rest against your skin, choosing to see both at once. Mini Arc 5. Gossip around the jewels. By evening the necklace has already been noted. In the corridor, whispers rise softly. One courtier remarks that the pearls look smaller than last year's. Another suggests they were once worn by someone else. Gossip clings to jewels like dust to fabric. The myth imagines envy as sharp and dangerous. The reality is that envy at court was often dull, repetitive, and predictable. Who gave it? When? Why? Such questions circled endlessly, rarely answered, often forgotten by the next week. Fortunata hums louder, pretending not to hear. Rat-faced Pierre mutters as he writes, "Jewels are gossip cast in stone." You smile faintly at his words, knowing he has once again spoken truth in sarcasm. The dilemma: should you defend the necklace against gossip, or let silence guard you? You remain silent, for silence is often the most protective rule. Mini Arc 6. The Ledger of Gifts. In a quiet corner of the chamber lies a small book, its pages filled with careful lists. It is your private ledger, where you note each gift, each promise, each date. Some mistresses kept such books secretly, others left the task to clerks. The myth forgets these details, preferring endless glitter. The reality was practical. To track gifts was to track favor itself. You turn the pages, reading entries of past years. A brooch, later lost. A gown, now patched. A ring, returned to the treasury. Each line is both memory and warning. The dilemma: should you write the truth of each promise in the ledger, or only the object itself? You choose honesty, noting both the pearls and the king's quiet word. Mini Arc 7. Myth and reality of wealth. At last, as the fire burns lower, you reflect on the myth that mistresses lived like queens, surrounded by treasure. The reality is steadier. Jewels may sparkle, but they are never entirely secure. Gifts may glitter, but they carry the weight of expectation. Historians point to records where mistresses, once replaced, were forced to return nearly everything, their rooms stripped bare within days. The myth celebrates abundance. The reality remembers transit. You finger the pearls again, cool against your skin, wondering how long they will remain yours. Soft landing. The chamber grows quiet. The chest rests closed once more, its iron clasp holding steady. Fortunata hums softly as she smooths the folds of your gown. Rat-faced Pierre sighs as he seals another ledger, his quill squeaking faintly. The air cools as night presses against the windows, carrying the faint scent of damp stone and fading fire. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. The Queen's shadow. The day unfolds slowly, and once again you find yourself preparing to step into the wider halls of the palace. This time, though, the path is heavier. The air seems thicker, carrying not only the faint smell of beeswax polish, but also the weight of expect. You are not heading toward a banquet, or to letters and gossip. You are moving into the Queen's presence, into the realm where glances matter more than words, and where silence can be louder than a shout. The myth has always suggested that the mistress and the Queen lived in open rivalry, locked in endless contests of jealousy and wit. Plays, novels, and later histories delight in painting the Queen and the mistress as sworn enemy. The reality, however, preserved in church logs, city accounts and letters from servants, was quieter. Rivalry was often muted, not spoken directly, but felt in the spaces between gestures. Sometimes queens tolerated, sometimes ignored, and occasionally even befriended the women who shared their husband's affection. You live this reality now, step by step, careful and calm, never quite sure if you walk toward courtesy or coldness. Mini Arc 1. The Corridor of Waiting. You approach the long corridor leading to the Queen's chamber. The floor beneath you creaks faintly, the polished wood groaning under centuries of footsteps. The smell here is of lavender, mixed with the lingering wax of extinguished torch. Servants stand in silence along the walls, their eyes lowered, their posture steady. You know the first rule: never arrive before the Queen is ready. To enter too soon risks being seen as impatient. To arrive too late risks The myth claims mistresses swept boldly into chambers, unafraid of protocol. The reality is that many waited, sometimes for hours, until a quiet nod permitted them to pass. Fortunata, the lucky one, trails behind, humming faintly under her breath. She hums not out of joy but habit, her tune a shield against silence. Rat-faced Pierre appears briefly at the far end, clutching a scroll,
muttering that the queen's ink dries slower than her words. His sarcasm drifts past like smoke, softening the tension of wait. The dilemma lingers. Should you approach the door now, or wait longer? You choose patience, letting your breath settle, your presence blending into the corridor. Mini Act 2, the glance of the queen. At last the chamber doors open, and you step in. The queen sits by the window, light falling across her embroidered gown. The fabric glitters faintly in the sun, the threads heavy with gold. The scent in the room shifts, a mixture of lavender, rose water, and the faint smoke of a recently extinguished candle. Her eyes lift steady and cool, meeting yours for only a moment. The myth imagines fiery glances, daggers in the air. The reality is subtler, a glance that can mean approval, dismissal, or nothing at all. Records from courtiers suggest that entire reputations rose or fell from such small encounters. You bow your head slightly, the velvet of your gown brushing softly against your knees. Fortunata hums no more. She has learned that in the queen's chamber, even humming must be silent. Rat-faced Pierre, hovering near the doorway, sighs faintly, as though holding his breath in ink. The dilemma: should you return the queen's gaze longer, asserting presence, or lower your eyes quickly, offering deference? You choose to lower your eyes, letting silence carry respect. Mini Act 3, rules of behavior in the queen's presence. There are rules, unspoken yet rigid, for how to move in the queen's presence. You recall them carefully, almost like a prayer tear. Do not laugh more loudly than the queen. Do not wear brighter colors than her gown. Do not interrupt if she speaks, even in jest. Do not sit until invited. Do not let your eyes wander too freely around the chamber. Do not leave without bowing twice. Each rule feels steady, grounding you in the moment. The myth insists queens and mistresses fought in words and schemes. The reality, as confirmed in household codes, is that conflict was often hidden behind courtesy, a performance of calm. The dilemma: should you attempt to speak a compliment, or remain still? You remain still, allowing your presence to be shaped by rules, rather than impulse. Mini Act 4, the queen's questions. The queen breaks the silence with a simple question. Was your night restful? Her tone is level, her words neither warm nor cold. The myth would have her ask with biting sarcasm. The reality is more restrained. Questions like these appear in letters of the period, preserved by scribes, simple pleasantries, laced with layers of meaning. Was it kindness? Was it testing? You cannot always You answer softly, describing the quiet night, the steady fire, the hum of servants in distant halls. The queen nods once, nothing more. Fortunata stands silently, hands folded, her hum now locked behind pressed lip. Rat-faced Pierre scribbles faintly in his margins, his quill scratching with exaggerated effort. You wonder if his notes will one day be read as history, or forgotten as scratches. The dilemma: should you offer more words, filling the silence, or let the moment rest? You let it rest, letting silence hold its own power. Mini Act 5, myth and reality of rivalry. You reflect quietly on the myth of rivalry. Plays later imagined queens and mistresses trading insults across banquets, dripping venom disguised as wit. The reality was less dramatic. Records from diplomatic letters suggest that queens often tolerated, for to object openly would expose weakness. Mistresses often softened their presence, avoiding direct confrontation. The tension was not in shouts, but in glances, pauses, and the weight of silence. Historians still debate whether any true friendships existed. Some suggest that in certain courts, queens and mistresses even dined together, finding shared ground in survival within a world ruled by men. Others believe distance was always kept. The dilemma: should you attempt kindness, risking rejection, or remain distant, preserving safety? You remain distant, your smile faint but measured. Mini Act 6, the shadow of comparison. Living near the queen means living in comparison. You notice her gown embroidered with your own velvet, though fine, bears faint wear at the sleeve. You notice her jewels, polished until they gleam. Your pearls, though gifted, carry one bead uneven, one surface dulled. The myth is that mistresses outshone queens. Effort. The reality, confirmed in accounts, is that queens had access to greater resources, their wardrobes richer, their jewels larger. The mistress lived in shadow, visible yet never fully shining. Fortunata, ever loyal, mutters softly after the queen departs. Your pearls shine brighter, I swear. Her words are comforting, though you know they are not true. Rat-faced Pierre adds his sarcasm. Shadows flatter more than light, both in their own way, ease the weight of comparison. The dilemma: should you strive to compete in display, or accept the shadow? You accept the shadow, knowing that presence, not brightness, is your role. Miniac 7. The rules of survival beneath the queen. You recall another set of rules, specific to survival beneath the queen's gaze. Praise without flattery, wait without impatience, speak without revealing, smile without arrogance, listen more than you answer, appear steady, never restless. These rules are not written in any book, but they are remembered in the quiet notes of those who observed. They are not weapons, but shield. The dilemma: should you break one rule for the sake of boldness, or follow them all with care? You follow them, letting each rule steady your breath, your posture, your presence. Miniac 8. Shadows and softness. As the day draws to a close, you realize that to live in the queen's shadow is not to fight constantly, but to balance carefully. You are visible, but never central. You are acknowledged, but never elevated. Myths of rivalry dissolve into the reality of coexistence, sometimes tense, sometimes calm, always quiet. Historians write of these moments with debate. Some claim mistresses shaped history and rivalry with queen. Others claim they simply lived beside them, tolerated like another piece of furniture in the chamber. Perhaps both are true. Fortunata hums again gently as she folds your gown for the night. Ratface Pierre scribbles one last note, muttering that history will record sighs more than smile. You let his words drift away, focusing instead on the steady glow of the fire. Soft landing. The candles burn lower, their wax pooling in uneven ridges. The air cools as the evening deepens, and silence wraps itself around you. The queen's shadow lingers still, soft and steady, neither threatening nor kind, simply present. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest, banquets and boredom. You walk slowly toward the great hall where the evening banquet is to be held. The corridors are lined with torches, their smoke curling faintly toward the high ceiling. The smell of roasted meats drifts through the air long before you reach the door, mingled with the sharp tang of wine spilled earlier, and already drying into the rushes on the floor. Each step brings you closer to the ceremony of eating, a ritual as much about presence as it is about food. The myth has long suggested that banquets in royal courts were grand spectacles, brimming with laughter, overflowing with exotic dishes, and filled with endless merriment. Reality, however, described in account books, diaries, and the reports of foreign ambassadors, was calmer, more predictable, and often tedious. Food might arrive lukewarm, speeches might drag on, and most of the time was spent sitting, waiting, and trying not to appear restless. Tonight you experience that rhythm in every small detail. Miniac 1. The entrance. You pause before the carved wooden doors of the hall. They creak faintly as servants push them open, releasing a wave of warmth from the fires inside. The light glows golden across the walls, where tapestries hang heavy, their colors dimmed by smoke. The first rule of banquets is simple: never enter before the king and queen. You wait at the threshold until a steward nods, and then you step carefully inside. The sound meets you slowly, the shuffling of chairs, the rustle of fabric, the faint clatter of pewter plates already being arranged. Fortunata, the lucky one, follows just behind, humming softly until she realizes where she is, then falling silent. Ratface Pierre stands at one side of the room, scribbling into a ledger with his habitual sighs, already recording how many cups have been set. The dilemma arises: should you take a seat quickly or wait longer, risking notice? You choose patience, hovering quietly, letting the ritual unfold. Miniac 2. The setting of the table. Banquets begin long before eating. Servants carry heavy trays, their footsteps steady, the smell of bread and stewed vegetables trailing behind them. The clink of goblets being set down is rhythmic, almost like the tolling of bells. The myth tells that tables overflowed endlessly, groaning with food. The reality, preserved in kitchen accounts, was that much food was reused from earlier meals, reheated, and dressed again with herbs to disguise its age. Step by step the table is arranged. First, the bread is placed, one loaf between two. Platters of meat follow, steaming faintly, though some already cooled. Finally, trenchers of vegetables and fruit are added, arranged without flourish. The dilemma: should you reach for bread early, or wait until the king begins? You wait, hands folded, as the hall fills with murmur. Miniac 3. Rules of eating. As you take your seat, you remember the rules that govern the act of dining. Do not lift your goblet until the king lifts his. Do not take more than a single portion at once. Do not speak loudly while chewing. Do not reach across the table, even if the food is near. Do not comment on the taste of dishes unless asked. Do not wipe your mouth with your hand. Use the cloth. These rules seem simple, but they are strict. To break one is to risk not scandal, but whispered. The myth says banquets were wild, careless affairs. The reality, confirmed in etiquette manuals, is that they were slow and heavily restrained. The dilemma: should you sip the watered wine to ease your thirst, or hold it untouched, your throat dry? You wait, the goblet heavy before you. Miniac 4. The sound of the hall. The hall hums with muted sound, knives scraping against plates, servants moving steadily, courtiers whispering. The fire crackles faintly in the hearth, its smoke curling upward. The smell of roasted beef mixes with the sharper tang of garlic. You glance along the table. The queen sits at the center, her gown glittering faintly in the firelight. You as mistress sit neither too near nor too far, a position both visible and ambiguous. Fortunata stands behind you, her humming replaced with watchful silence. Rat-face Pierre moves along the wall, muttering about too much wine poured, too few lips to drink it. His sarcasm, soft as always, grounds the scene in reality. The myth insists that banquets sparkled with joy. The reality is that the sound is steady, predictable and often tedious, the repetition of plates and cups more dominant than laughter. Miniac 5. The courses. The food arrives in order, though not in abundance. The first course is soup, steaming faintly, ladled into bowls that are never quite even. The smell is of onions and broth, comforting yet plain. The second course is roasted meat, carried in on heavy platters. The fat glistens, but by the time it reaches you, the warmth has faded. The third course is bread and cheese, the cheese sharp, the bread slightly stale. The fourth course is fruit, some ripe, others bruised. Finally, sweetmeats appear, sugared almonds in small bowls, quickly devoured by those near the head of the table. The myth suggests endless variety. The reality, shown in inventories, is that most dishes repeated night after night. The dilemma: should you eat sparingly, maintaining elegance, or fully, risking notice? You choose sparingly, leaving most untouched, signaling restraint.
Miniac 6. The boredom beneath the glitter. As the courses drag on, time itself feels heavy. The hall grows warmer, the air filled with smoke and the constant smell of roasted meat. Conversation dwindles, then rises again in small waves. The myth paints banquets as endlessly entertaining. The reality, confessed in diaries, is that many courtiers yawned behind their hands, counting the moments until dismissal. You feel that same weight now, sitting upright, pretending to be attentive while the minutes crawl forward. Fortunata fidgets, then resumes her humming faintly, earning a sharp look from another servant. Rat-face Pierre scratches new notes into his ledger, sighing louder than before, his pen squeaking against the parchment. The dilemma: should you let your gaze wander, risking a glance toward the king, or remain fixed on your plate? You remain fixed, steady, letting your stillness become its own kind of armor. Miniac 7. Rules of conversation at table. As the final course is cleared, conversation becomes the meal itself. Yet even here, rules apply. Decas: do not speak before the king has spoken. Do not mention matters of money. Decas: do not whisper too closely. It suggests plot. Do not laugh too loudly. It disturbs the queen. Decas: do not let silence fall too long. Fill it gently when needed. The myth imagines witty exchanges, sparkling debate. The reality, noted in ambassadorial reports, was more restrained. Weather, hunts, illnesses, nothing more. The dilemma: should you attempt a light remark or remain silent? You murmur gently about the warmth of the fire, nothing more. Miniac 8. The closing of the banquet. At last, the king rises, and the banquet ends. Servants clear dishes quickly, the clatter echoing across the hall. The smell of wine lingers, mixed now with the must of extinguished torches. You rise, bowing slightly toward the queen, then stepping back. The rules of exit are as important as those of entrance. Do not leave before the queen. Do not hurry. Walk steadily. Do not speak in the corridor until the doors close. Do not look back, even if tempted. You follow each rule, steady as stone, your velvet gown brushing softly as you move. Fortunata hums again as soon as the door closes. Relief. Rat-face Pierre sighs one last time, rolling up his ledger with exaggerated care. The banquet is over, but the boredom lingers like smoke upon fabric. Soft landing. The candles are extinguished one by one, leaving the hall in darkness. The air cools, the smoke of roasted meat replaced by the faint must of empty space. You walk back through the corridor, the silence wrapping around you once again. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Politics in the bedroom. The chamber is quiet when you return. The banquet has ended, the corridors have emptied, and the palace now rests in a slower rhythm. The fires burn low, casting long shadows across the stone wall. You sit at the edge of the bed, velvet gown heavy upon your shoulders, pearls cool against your skin. This is not only a room for rest, it is a place where politics lingers in whispers, where promises are spoken more softly than in council chambers, and where decisions ripple outward from between curtains of embroidered silk. The myth has always declared that the royal mistress held her true power here in the bedroom, that kings poured secrets into waiting ears, that policies were shaped upon pillows, that kingdoms bent beneath the quiet of candlelight. The reality, however, is less dramatic. Historians point to letters, diaries and court records that reveal a more fragile truth. Sometimes words were spoken, sometimes ignored, sometimes promises were made, sometimes forgotten. Influence existed, yes, but it was subtle, uncertain, and never guaranteed. You feel that reality now, sitting in the stillness, waiting for the soft sound of footsteps in the corridor. Mini-Arc 1. The preparation of the chamber. Before any politics begins, there is ritual. The bed must be prepared, the air scented, the chamber warm. Servants move quietly, almost invisibly, following rules not written, but well known. The bed curtains are drawn back, the fabric heavy with the smell of smoke and incense. The sheets are smoothed, their linen cool against the fingertips. The fire is stoked, wood crackling, sending sparks briefly into the air. A small brazier burns herbs, filling the room with faint rosemary. Candles are trimmed, their flames steady, their wax dripping in slow rivulet. Fortunata, the lucky one, hums quietly as she adjusts the pillows, as if her tune could soften even politics. Rat-face Pierre enters briefly with a scroll in hand, sighs loudly, and mutters, "Even beds have ledgers." His sarcasm lingers in the air, leaving behind both humor and truth. The dilemma: should you dismiss the servants quickly, keeping the chamber private, or let them linger, ensuring everything is perfect? You let them linger, valuing steadiness over haste. Mini-Arc 2. The arrival. At last, footsteps echo in the corridor, measured, deliberate. The king enters, his cloak brushing softly against the floor. The smell of wine clings faintly to him, mixed with the leather of his boots. He sets aside his gloves, sits upon the edge of the bed and says nothing at first. The myth imagines immediate whispers of state, secrets spilled with urgency. The reality is slower, silence is stretched, words chosen carefully, politics woven with pauses. Historians note that many nights passed with little more than sighs, with nothing spoken beyond the ordinary. Tonight may be such a night, or perhaps not. The dilemma: should you begin conversation or wait until he speaks? You wait, letting silence hold its own meaning. Mini-Arc 3. The first words. At last, the king speaks softly. The envoys grow restless. His voice is steady, the words heavy but vague. Politics begins not with declarations but with fragments. The myth insists mistresses responded with strategy, offering plans as clever as ministers. The reality, however, is that many listened more than they spoke, offering reassurance more than policy. Your role now is not to command but to echo, to soothe, to reflect. You answer simply. Restless envoys grow calmer with patience. The king nods, his eyes unfocused, as if thinking beyond the room. The moment is not dramatic, but it is political. Mini-Arc 4. Rules of pillow talk. Politics in the bedroom follows rules as firm as any council. Never ask first, let him speak. Do not contradict harshly, shape answers with softness. Keep your tone calm, even if the topic is sharp. Never repeat words outside these walls. End conversations with comfort, not with question. These rules are not written in any manual, but letters and diaries confirm their rhythm. A mistress who broke them risked being ignored. One who followed them could linger longer in memory. The dilemma: should you press for detail about the envoys or let his words drift unanswered? You let them drift, choosing comfort over curiosity. Mini-Arc 5. The whisper of secrets. Later, the king leans closer, his voice dropping. He mentions a name, a noble restless with ambition, a courtier perhaps to be watched. His words are more sigh than statement. You listen, steady, eyes lowered, hands folded upon your lap. The myth says such whispers shaped nations. The reality is gentler. Some secrets mattered, others did not. Some were remembered, others forgotten by morning. Fortunata, outside the door, hums faintly, her tune muffled but present. Rat-face Pierre scratches in his ledger somewhere down the corridor, sighing as though even secrets required ink. The dilemma: should you remember every word, storing them carefully, or let some drift away like smoke? You choose to remember, though you know not all will matter. Mini-Arc 6. The promise of influence. The king sets his hand upon yours, a gesture as much political as personal. "I will see that your request is answered," he says. The words are vague, yet they hold promise. Perhaps it means a gown, perhaps a favor for a relative, perhaps nothing at all. Historians debate endlessly whether such promises meant true power. Some letters confirm that requests were fulfilled, others show silence, promises lost in the tide of other concern. The myth claims promises were binding, the reality reveals them as fragile threads. The dilemma: should you believe the promise, or prepare for its breaking? You hold both possibilities, calm and steady, neither eager nor doubtful. Miniarch 7. The Queen's shadow. Even here, even in this chamber, the Queen's presence lingers. You feel it in the silence, in the way the king avoids certain words. The myth says mistresses banished queens from memory at night. The reality is that queens were never absent, their authority extending even into absence. You lower your eyes, letting the thought pass. Fortunata once said, "Even shadows linger in candlelight." Rat-face Pierre, with his dry wit, would likely add, "And clerks record even shadow." The dilemma: should you raise the Queen's name, or keep it unsaid? You keep it unsaid, letting silence hold its own respect. Miniarch 8. Myth and reality of bedroom politics. The myth glitters, kingdoms steered from pillows, treaties shaped by whispers. The reality is quiet. Influence did exist, but it was subtle, fragile, often overstated. Court records confirm that decisions were made in council chambers, signed in documents, debated in assembly. Yet diaries hint that words spoken softly at night sometimes nudged those decisions, tilting them slightly, never overturning them. You sit in that balance now, speaking little, listening more, knowing that your presence itself is influence, even when words are not. Soft landing. The fire burns lower, its embers glowing faintly red. The candles drip slowly, their wax forming uneven ridges upon the table. The chamber is quiet once more. The king drifts towards sleep, his breath steady. You remain still, pearls cool upon your neck, the rules of politics lingering even here. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Rules of survival. The palace at night is never fully silent. Even as the great halls grow still, faint sounds linger, the distant creak of a wooden door, the shuffle of a servant's feet, the sigh of wind pressing against old stone. You sit in your chamber, fire glowing faintly, and think not of jewels or banquets, but of survival. To remain here as mistress is not only to be seen, it is to last. The myth has often claimed that mistresses lived carefree, untouchable in luxury, unconcerned with consequence. The reality, recorded in diaries, account books, and letters from courtiers, was quieter and heavier. To remain a mistress was to balance carefully, to know when to speak, when to be silent, when to step forward, and when to retreat. It was less about brilliance, and more about endurance. Tonight, you feel that weight as clearly as the velvet on your shoulder. Miniarch 1. The first rule: share your smile, not your secrets. The first survival rule is simple: a smile can protect, a secret can destroy. You remember this as you sit by the fire, the smell of smoke curling softly through the room. When courtiers approach with questions, when servants linger too long, when rat-face Pierre sighs and mutters his observations, you give only a smile. A smile says much without committing. Secrets once spoken travel farther than intended. Historians still debate how many scandals began not with bold actions, but with loose words. Records show letters intercepted, whispers overheard, secrets carried to rivals. The myth insists mistresses could confide freely, surrounded by loyal allies. The reality is that loyalty was rare, and silence safer. The dilemma: should you tell Fortunata, the lucky one, what the king whispered last night, trusting her hum to cover it, or keep it within? You keep it within, smiling faintly instead, as the fire crackles. Miniarch 2. The second rule: never appear more tired than the king. The second rule is physical, yet political. You must never appear more weary than the king. If his eyes sag, yours must remain steady. If his steps slow, yours must be calm but not dragging. You recall last night's banquet, the endless courses, the weight of boredom pressing against your shoulders. Yet when the king rose, so did you, steady and upright. Fortunata whispered later, you walked like stone, not like flesh. She meant it as prayer. The myth paints mistresses as fragile, fainting upon couches, tended endlessly by servants. The reality is that strength of endurance mattered more than fragility. Diaries of attendants mention mistresses standing for hours, waiting silently, never allowed to slump or yawn. The dilemma:
Should you rest your head upon your hand as you sit tonight, or hold upright steady, you remain upright, even as the fire warms and the night length. Miniarca 1. A primeira regra, compartilhe seu sorriso, não seus segredos. A primeira regra de sobrevivência simples, sorriso pode proteger, segredo pode destruir. Você se lembra disso enquanto se senta junto ao fogo, o cheiro de fumaça subindo suavemente pelo quarto, quando cortesãos se aproximam com perguntas, quando servos demoram demais, quando Rat-Face Pierre suspira e murmura suas observações. Você oferece apenas sorriso. Sorriso diz muito sem se comprometer. Segredos, uma vez ditos, viajam mais longe do que se pretendia. Historiadores ainda debatem quantos escândalos começaram não com ações ousadas, mas com palavras soltas. Registros mostram cartas interceptadas, cochichos ouvidos, segredos levados a rivais. O mito insiste que as amantes podiam confiar livremente, cercadas de aliados leais. A realidade é que a lealdade era rara, e o silêncio, mais seguro. O dilema, contar a Fortunata, o que o rei sussurrou na noite passada, confiando que seu cantarolado encobriria, ou guardar para si. Você guarda para si, sorrindo levemente em vez disso, enquanto o fogo crepita. Miniarca 2. A segunda regra, nunca parecer mais cansada que o rei. A segunda regra, física, mas também política. Você nunca deve parecer mais cansada que o rei. Se os olhos dele pesam, os seus devem permanecer firmes. Se seus passos se arrastam, os seus devem ser calmos, mas não lentos. Você se lembra do banquete da noite passada, os pratos intermináveis, o peso do tédio pressionando seus ombros. Ainda assim, quando o rei se levantou, você também se levantou firme e ereto. Fortunata murmurou depois. Você andou como pedra, não como carne. Ela quis dizer como elogio. O mito pinta as amantes como frágeis, desmaiando em divãs, atendidas sem fim por servos. A realidade é que a força da resistência importava mais que a fragilidade. Diários de criados mencionam amantes de pé por horas, esperando em silêncio, nunca autorizadas a curvar-se ou bocejar. O dilema, apoiar a cabeça na mão enquanto se senta esta noite, ou manter-se ereta, firme. Você permanece ereta, mesmo enquanto o fogo aquece e a noite se alonga. Miniarca 7. Nithan reality of survival. You lean back, the chair creaking softly beneath you. The fire warms one side of your face, leaving the other cool. You reflect on the myths of survival. Women painted as clever strategists, scheming endlessly to secure their place. The reality, however, is steadier. Survival was not about brilliance, but about balance. Endurance more than wit, patience more than plot. Historians argue over how much influence mistresses truly held. Some point to treaties, gifts and letters, suggesting real power. Others note the silences, the forgotten names, the women who faded from records entirely. You realize survival itself was the greater power, to remain present, to remain remembered. Soft landing. The chamber grows quieter as the fire burns lower, its embers glowing faintly red. Fortunata hums softly, as she folds the last of your gowns. Rat-Face Pierre sighs as he closes his ledger, muttering, "Survival is written in margins." His voice drifts away with the smoke. The air cools as night deepens, shadows stretching across the stone wall. You breathe slowly, following the rhythm of your own rules, each one steady, each one simple. The fire crackles softly, as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Festivals, masks and masquerades. The palace awakens differently on festival day. The corridors that usually echo with steady footsteps now hum with a faint air of anticipation. Servants move more quickly, carrying fabrics, instruments and trays of sweet meat. The smell in the air is richer too. Spices, wax from freshly polished masks, and the faint must of stored costumes released from cedar chests. You rise from your chair slowly, aware that tonight you will take part in a ritual that is both entertainment and performance, both celebration and caution. The myth has long imagined court festivals as nights of unchecked joy, filled with endless laughter, bold dances, and unrestrained indulgence. The reality, recorded in letters, household accounts and observations from foreign envoys, was steady. Festivals were scripted, carefully watched and bound by as many rules as banquets or audiences. With the queen, behind the masks, you still lived in shadow. Tonight you will feel that balance in every step. Miniarca 1. Preparing the mask. On a small table lies a mask, carved of wood and covered in painted paper. Its smell is faintly sharp, like glue with an undertone of cedar from the chest where it rested. You lift it gently, feeling its rough edges where the paint has cracked. Fortunata, the lucky one, hums as she polishes it with her sleeve, her tune as steady as always. She holds up another mask, too large for her own face, and chuckles faintly, though quickly hides the sound. Rat-faced Pierre appears with his ledger, sighing at the sight of feathers glued askew. Even masks cannot escape poor accounting, he mutters. Step by step you prepare, tie the ribbons carefully, checking their strength. Hold the mask to your face, adjusting until vision is clear. Breathe slowly, testing the air behind it. Lower it again, saving the reveal for the evening. The dilemma: should you wear the plain mask, blending quietly, or the more ornate, risking unwanted notice? You choose the plainer mask. Its simplicity safe. Mini Arc 2, Rules of Festival Dress. Festivals demand dress as much as masks. The gowns chosen are brighter than usual, though not without restraint. The myth insists mistresses wore jewels beyond reason. The reality, confirmed in account lists, is that costumes were often altered versions of older gowns, re-trimmed with ribbon and lace. Rules apply even here. Do not wear more gold than the queen. Do not arrive with fewer ribbons than other ladies. Do not let your mask slip too often. Do not appear too eager to dance. Do not refuse when the king invites. Fortunata hums louder as she ties ribbons around your sleeves. Rat-faced Pierre sighs, muttering, "Rules for ribbons, rules for spoons, rules for size. What now?" His sarcasm, though sharp, makes the rules feel steadier. The dilemma: should you add more color, risking too much, or keep the gown muted? You keep it muted, knowing shadow is safer than brilliant. Mini Arc 3, Entering the Masquerade. The great hall glows with candlelight, dozens of flames mirrored in the polished silver cups and trays. The smell of beeswax thickens the air, mixed with wine and perfume. The sound is louder than banquets, music from lutes and flutes, the rhythmic beat of a drum. You enter slowly, mask in hand. The rule is clear: do not put it on until after the queen has raised hers. You wait, the music continuing in steady rhythm, until she lifts her mask, white and feathered. Then you follow, tying the ribbons behind your head, the fabric brushing softly against your hair. The myth paints such moments as free, even liberating. The reality is that freedom exists only within limits. Every gesture is noticed, even behind disguise. The dilemma: should you step boldly into the crowd, or linger near the wall? You linger, blending with the others. Mini Arc 4, The Dances. At last, the dancing begins. Pairs step forward, their shoes tapping rhythmically against the wooden floor. The music swells, though not wildly, but with steady patterns. The myth imagines passionate whirls, dances of abandon. The reality, described in dance manuals, was structured, steps measured, turns rehearsed, bows required at intervals. Even behind masks, formality prevails. You are invited to dance. The king offers his hand, warm and firm. You accept, moving through the steps carefully. Step forward, then back. Turn slowly, gown brushing softly against the floor. Raise your hand, lowering again with care. Pause, bow, then step aside. Fortunata watches from the wall, humming softly even over the music. Rat-faced Pierre sighs as he records each dance partner in his notes, muttering about ledgers of feet. The dilemma: should you dance lightly, showing joy, or with restraint, showing dignity? You choose restraint, your steps calm. Mini Arc 5, The Whispers Behind Masks. As the evening deepens, whispers rise behind masks. Courtiers lean close, voices muffled. A noble speaks of debts, another of envy, another of favor. Masks create the illusion of freedom, but everyone knows voices are recognized. The myth insists, secrets spilled freely at masquerades. The reality is that most words were careful, even here. Foreign envoys recorded festivals as dull, masks worn more as custom than true disguise. The dilemma: should you whisper back, joining the murmurs, or remain silent behind your mask? You remain silent, your stillness a shield. Mini Arc 6, Rules of Masquerades. Every masquerade carries its own rules, repeated by habit. Never remove your mask until midnight. Do not reveal names, even if guessed. Do not drink too quickly. Masks hide little clumsiness. Do not dance more than 3 times with the same partner. Do not slip away early without permission. These rules bring predictability, comfort in their repetition. The myth imagines chaos. The reality is order disguised as freedom. Rat-faced Pierre sighs, muttering, even shadows must follow rules. Fortunata hums her steady tune, proving that even behind masks, nothing truly changes. Miniac 7. The moment of boredom. Hours pass. The air grows warmer, filled with smoke and perfume. Candles drip wax unevenly, forming ridges like miniature mountains. The music continues, steady but repetitive. You sit for a while, mask still tied, listening to the endless rhythm. The myth suggests endless excitement. The reality is slower. Diaries of ladies mention aching feet, gowns heavy with sweat, and yawns hidden behind masks. You feel that same weight now, your shoulders heavy beneath velvet, your breath slowed by the closeness of the mask. A dilemma. Should you remove it early for comfort, risking breaking the rule, or endure? You endure, the mask pressing lightly against your cheek.
Miniac 8. The midnight unmasking. At last the hour arrives. The king rises, removes his mask, and the hall follows. Ribbons untie, faces reappear. The myth calls it revelation, drama. The reality is simple. Tired faces, sweat on brows, relief in sighs. You remove yours, the air cool against your skin. Fortunata smiles faintly, humming louder now that rules permit sound again. Rat-faced Pierre scribbles one last note, muttering, masks fall, but ledgers remain. The dilemma, should you linger, continuing the night, or retreat quietly? You retreat, steps slow, gown brushing softly, the festival fading behind you. Soft landing, the hall empties, candles extinguished one by one. The smell of smoke replaces the perfume. The music has stopped, leaving silence steady in its place. You walk the corridor slowly, pearls cool against your neck, mask dangling from your hand. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. Decline, replacement and memory. The palace feels different with time. The corridors you once entered with anticipation now seem longer, quieter. The torches still burn, the floors are still polished. The sounds of servants remain, yet the air feels heavier. The smell of beeswax lingers as always, but you notice the faint scent of damp stone more keenly. The velvet of your gown presses more sharply at the shoulders. Where once you felt steady, now you feel the weight of decline. The myth tells that mistresses shone until the end, glittering until the final day of favor. The reality, preserved in records of treasures and in letters written by courtiers, shows decline as gradual. Fewer gifts, fewer invitations, colder glances, and longer silences. Replacement was common, and memory was all that lingered. Tonight, you live through that truth. Miniac 1. The first sign of fading. It begins subtly. At the banquet your seat is a little farther from the king. The roasted meats arrive later, cooled by the time they reach you. The queen's glance lingers, but only faintly, as though you are already fading. Fortunata, the lucky one, notices first. She hums more softly now, her tune slower, as though sympathy hums through her breath. Rat-faced Pierre, scribbling in his ledger, sighs louder than usual. Ink fades slower than favor, he mutters, words sharp but not uncut. The dilemma, should you ignore these signs, pretending all is well, or acknowledge them quietly? You ignore them, keeping your smile steady. Miniac 2. Rules of decline. You recall unspoken rules for this stage, as steady as those that guided survival. Accept distance without protest. Smile even when the gifts lessen. Do not beg for invitation. Step aside when younger faces appear. The myth suggests mistresses clung desperately, fighting loudly for attention. The reality was calmer. To struggle too openly was to fall faster. To remain quiet was to preserve dignity, if not favor. The dilemma, should you speak to the king tonight, reminding him of past promises, or remain silent? You remain silent, letting memory do what words cannot. A young woman, her gown freshly embroidered, her eyes bright with both hope and nervousness. The myth imagines such rivals as immediate enemies. The reality is subtler. Many mistresses saw their replacements long before the shift was official. Fortunata mutters quietly, her ribbons are tied too tightly. Rat-faced Pierre scribbles, sighing, another line in the ledger, same ink as before. Their words soften the moment, though the truth is clear. The dilemma, should you acknowledge the new face with kindness, or ignore her entirely? You nod faintly, choosing courtesy. Miniac 4. The gifts that cease. The chest on your table remains closed more often now. No new pearls, no new gowns, only the same brooch polished until the clasp loosens. The myth tells of treasures until the end. The reality, confirmed in inventories, is that gifts dwindled quickly, reassigned or withheld. You open the chest anyway, tracing the edge of the pearls with your finger. They are cool, steady, a reminder of earlier days. Fortunata polishes them again, humming a tune now tinged with melancholy. Rat-faced Pierre mutters, ledgers weigh less when they are empty. The dilemma, should you wear the pearls tonight, clinging to memory, or leave them aside? You wear them, letting their coolness steady you. Mini-Arc 5. The Queen's glance. In decline, even the Queen's gaze changes. Where once it lingered sharply, now it drifts past you, no longer needing to measure you. As the myth imagines queens triumphant in such moments, smirking as rivals fade. The reality was often indifference. Queens had lived through many mistresses, and each replacement was predictable. You lower your eyes, steady. Fortunata whispers faintly. Shadows pass quickly. Rat-faced Pierre, with his usual dryness, adds, but shadows still leave marks on the wall. The dilemma, should you attempt to regain the Queen's notice, or embrace invisibility? You choose invisibility, allowing her glance to drift past. Mini-Arc 6. Rules of replacement. The rules for replacement are as predictable as those for survival. Step aside quietly. Struggle invites mockery. Keep what you are allowed, return what you must. Do not speak poorly of your success. Do not linger too long in corridors. Do not vanish entirely. Memory requires presence. The myth tells of bitter exits, filled with drama. The reality was more muted. A mistress faded, her belongings removed, her seat shifted, until she was present only in memory. The dilemma, should you linger longer in the hall tonight, or retreat early? You retreat, step slow, pearls cool against your neck. Mini-Arc 7. The weight of memory. Decline does not erase memory. Some letters still speak of past days, some servants still whisper your name, some courtiers recall when your pearls shone brightest. Historians debate how much of a mistress's legacy lived in politics, and how much lived only in rumor. Both linger. Fortunata hums the same tune she hummed on your first day, steady and unchanged. Rat-faced Pierre sighs as he closes another ledger, muttering, names fade but margins remain. The dilemma, should you cling to memory, or let it drift? You let it drift slowly, holding it lightly, as one holds pearls through cloth. Soft landing. The chamber grows quieter than ever before. The fire burns low, its embers faint, its warmth fading. The chest of gifts remains closed, the pearls resting heavily against your skin. The corridors beyond are filled with newer voices, fresher gowns, different glances. You remain steady in your chair, presence now more memory than power. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest. The fire fades, the chamber quietens, the palace grows quieter with each passing day. The corridors that once hummed with servants now echo more faintly, as though the very stone has grown weary of carrying so many footsteps. The smell of beeswax still lingers, but it mixes now with the must of damp air creeping in from the courtyard. You sit in your chamber, pearls resting loosely against your neck, the fire in the hearth burning low. This is not the beginning of favor, nor the height of attention. This is the quiet after, when the fire fades and memory grows heavier than presence. The myth has long claimed that mistresses vanished suddenly, swept away in storms of scandal. The reality, preserved in inventories, letters, and subtle notes in account books, is slow. They faded gently, their names spoken less often, their gifts reclaimed, their seats shifted, until only echoes remained. You live in that echo now, surrounded by objects that once signaled favor, but now carry the weight of memory. Mini-Arc 1. The chamber as it is. You look around the chamber, noticing small changes. The curtains sag slightly, their embroidery fraying where damp air has touched. The chest that once held jewels now holds only a few pieces, their shine dulled by time. The bed is steady but creaks faintly with age. Fortunata the lucky one hums as she adjusts the sheets, her tune slower now as though the air itself has taught her patience. Rat-faced Pierre stands by the table, sighing as he flips through his ledger. Empty margins weigh more than filled ones, he mutters. His sarcasm softens the silence, though it cannot erase it. The dilemma, should you cling to the chamber as it is, arranging objects as though favor still lingers, or accept its fading, letting dust settle. You arrange them carefully, choosing dignity over denial. Mini-Arc 2. The visitors who no longer come. You remember when courtiers arrived daily, bringing notes, gifts and whispers. Now the corridor outside your chamber is empty. A servant passes occasionally, carrying trays not for you but for others. Their footsteps are steady but distant. The myth imagines that mistresses were never forgotten, their doors always busy. The reality shows fewer visits, until silence became the louder presence. Records confirm this, notes of invitations sent less often, gifts halting, courtiers turning their attention elsewhere. Fortunata notices too, her humming pauses as she glances at the door, then resumes with a lower rat-faced Pierre sighs. Doors close more softly when no one waits behind them. The dilemma: should you send a note to remind others of your presence, or remain silent, letting absence speak? You remain silent, steady, as the corridor echoes faint. Miniac 3 Rules of quiet, withdrawal. Even decline has its rules, learned by those before you. Keep one dignity always, even in silence. The myth claims mistresses fought loudly for attention. The reality, confirmed in household logs, is that most withdrew quietly, their restraint remembered longer than their The dilemma: should you attempt to break one of these rules, just once to speak your mind? You do not. You let rules guide you steady as stone. Miniac 4, The Last Gift. On the table rests one final object, the pearl necklace, its clasp still stiff, its beads uneven. You lift it once more, feeling its coolness against your skin. It is no longer a symbol of favor, but of memory. Fortunata polishes it again, humming softly, as though polishing memory itself. Rat-faced Pierre mutters, pearls dull faster in ledgers than on neck. His sigh carries humor, though his eyes soften. The myth says mistresses ended with treasure. The reality shows many leaving with only a handful of items, sometimes returned later, sometimes kept quiet. You know the pearls may not remain yours, yet you hold them lightly, as though already borrowed from memory. The dilemma: should you lock them away in the chest, or wear them still, even now? You wear them, letting their weight rest gently, steadying your Miniac 5, The Reflection of Memory. You rise and stand by the window. The glass is wavy, distorting the courtyard beyond. You see the younger faces now walking where once you stood. The myth insists mistresses vanished entirely when replaced. The reality is that they lingered, sometimes near, sometimes far, but always as memories. Fortunata hums the same tune she hummed on your first day. Her constancy is comfort. Rat-faced Pierre scratches one last note into his ledger, muttering, history is written in sighs as much as deep. The dilemma: should you see yourself as forgotten, or as remembered differently? You choose the second, holding memory as its own kind of presence. Miniac 6, Myth and Reality of Endings. You reflect quietly on the myths of plays and novels later told of dramatic dismissals, of women sent away in disgrace. The reality is softer, more ordinary. Mistresses ended as they lived through routines, small gestures and fading attention. Some were given pensions, some married quietly, some simply moved into smaller chambers. Historians debate whether their influence mattered beyond their years. Some point to letters that changed alliances, others dismiss their presence as fleeting. Both are true. The dilemma: should you judge your life by myth or by reality? You let both rest together, neither erased, both steady. Miniac 7, The Quiet After. The chamber grows stiller, the fire burns low, embers glowing faintly red. The pearls rest cool upon your skin. The air is filled with smoke that smells faintly of wood and ash. Fortunata hums as she smooths the last quill. Rat-faced Pierre sighs as he closes his ledger, muttering, the ink runs out, but the margins remain. The myth is that endings are final, sharp. The reality is that endings are gradual, like fire fading into embers. You sit in that quiet now, not erased, not central, but steady. Soft landing. The candles drip the last of their wax. The fire fades into dim embers. The chamber cools as night presses softly against the stone walls. You lie down upon the bed, linen cool, pearls still at your neck. Outside, the corridors are silent. Inside, memory lingers like the faint warmth of fire long after flames have gone. The fire crackles softly as the night grows colder, and you drift again into uneasy rest.